the struggles, and the strategies of extraordinary leaders who understand that true success is not just about what you achieve, it's about the significance you create and the legacy that you leave behind. I'm your host, Clint Myburgh, business development strategist, coach, and a partner at Stain Rousseau & Associates. In this series, we're going to explore how leaders turn live experience into practical decisions that compound over time. This demonstrates the effect of doing the right things consistently. Today, I'm joined by Angelo Zanetti, the CEO of Elemental, a leading web and software development agency. And they've spent almost 2 decades building digital products and scalable platforms for clients across South Africa and beyond. Angelo and his team have navigated the waves of digital transformation from the early days of web design to today's world of AI-driven platforms, all while building not only a successful business, but a culture of growth and resilience and purpose. So in this conversation, we'll have a look at some of those decisions that mattered, the habits that stuck, and the systems that turned intent into reliable performance. Kick us off, Angelo. Welcome. Kick us off with a short story, origin story, and how did this sort of all start, and what nudged you towards Elemental?
Thanks, Clint. Really grateful to be here, and thanks for the intro. So we started actually by force, and what I mean by that is when we launched our company, it was the dot-com bubble had burst, and for a lot of younger viewers, they might not know what that means, so they might have to Google that. But essentially, there was a big tech bubble called the dot-com bubble, and it was a boom, and then eventually the bubble burst, and IT jobs got decimated throughout the world. South Africa was no exception, and we were kind of young guys, just starting our careers. I was still studying, doing an internship, and then at the moment of graduation, there were no real IT jobs. So the only really way to make a job was to create your own job, and we thought to start a little business, and yeah, and that was sort of the start of Elemental, where we kind of we just basically by force had to do something to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think from there that's sort of the start of it. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I mean, I understand that you started out as a developer. I mean, you really were quite good on the keyboard, right? So you used to pound away and get the stuff done, and then you decided that that was the time for you to shift up into a leadership position and get the newer generation, so to speak, onto the keyboards and doing that work, so that you can focus on leadership. So there's usually one of those moments that say, "Hang on, this might work."
Yeah, yeah.
Did you have a moment like that?
I think it was more gradual for us, to be honest. So when we started, we were 2 developers. We only knew coding, creating apps and databases and things like that. We didn't know anything about business. We didn't know how to get clients. We didn't know about marketing. We didn't know about sales. We didn't know about finance. So we kind of had to wear a lot of hats in the beginning, which was really tricky. And looking back at it, I kind of wonder how we did it all. We even had to clean our own office. We're that small. But then as time went by, we realized, we kind of needed to, get more people on the team. And slowly but surely, it was very nerve-wracking, the first kind of hire that we made. And I think that, that kind of proved to be successful. And then that was sort of a natural path as we got bigger and bigger and we grew more, bringing on more people. So I think the turning point was at some point where my partner Jerry and I, we said, well, actually, we shouldn't be coding anymore, and I can't remember how long ago we stopped, maybe 10, 15 years ago, and we left it to the guys on our team who are better coders than us. And we realized you can't be a developer and run a business and whatever, do project management and sales and everything else. Like either you're a developer, you focused on it, it needs a lot of attention, it needs a lot of, proverbial sharpening of the sword. And if you're not coding every day, learning every day, you're kind of falling behind by the wayside. So we said, well, actually, let's just step away from the coding, and let's focus on the business. So I think that's probably where the biggest, initial turning point was. Yeah.
Brilliant. So you kind of adopted the E-Myth strategy there, didn't you? You went from working in the business to working on it, and that's what great leaders do. So kudos for you. So things changed over the years. They did, and as they changed, something must have surprised you as a leader. What were those little things that came up and said, "Listen, we're changing, but something's surprising me as a leader over these years. This is what I'm starting to notice." Something pop up as a surprise to you.
Yeah, I think a surprise would be that we're a service-based business, so we're dealing with clients, we're not selling products. And a lot of our business relies on people in our business to fulfill the role of the service, right? To do the development and project management. And I think people is always tricky. You get some really amazing people, and then you often get, well, not often, but at times you can get the sort of odd, call them a C or D player. And I think those are little surprises that we picked up along the way that, we wanted everyone to work as hard as us, to be as passionate about it, about the work as us, to be proud of their work, and to really kind of give their extra 10%. And I think there were a few surprises where people were not kind of essentially aligning to our values and living the values and performing as we would expect them to perform as how we performed. So I think that's a little bit of a surprise. But looking back, it shouldn't have been a surprise, to be honest. I think that's part of learning and part of experience.
Oh, absolutely. And you would never have known until you went through that. So, that's fantastic. Culture is absolutely the most challenging thing of any business. If we understand it correctly, the primary asset of any business, including yours, is the people. And of course, culture comes along with it. So, managing that is always interesting. Is always interesting. Um, Angela, I'm thinking if it's comfortable for you, there must have been a problem that popped up for you guys. The first one that said to you, this problem is actually quite big. This is quite a big problem. And you must have written that problem statement down. Do you remember how that went? What sort of problem that you did, cast your mind back and pops up into your mind there?
Yeah, I would say a problem is that as we were growing, we were taking on all kinds of work, anything that we could get our hands on. And when you're a growing business, you're a young business, you do that, and that makes sense, right? But I think at some point we realized we can't do
It all.
everything. We need to kind of reposition ourselves. We need to be a bit more focused on what is it that we're really good at? What is it that really we like to do? And what is it that we don't like to do? And what sort of industries do we like to play in and not play in? And yeah, and then doing a sort of like an ICP positioning exercise. So those who don't know, ICP is your ideal customer profile, and then sort of mapping out your different profiles and what does that look like. It's a very, very good exercise. And then doing that, and looking back at the work that we've done and the work that made us really proud, and that we're, and also made sense for our business from a revenue and profitability point of view, we started to kind of shift more towards a repositioning and changing of who we want to target, who do we say yes to, who do we say no to. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things in our business that's been quite important.
Really fantastic. You said something there that just sparked a thought. It's often we don't give enough credit or enough attention to who we do not want to work with. And I think you
Mm.
raised that now. When you're working with all clients and everybody, it's you're going to end up with a lot of drag in your business.
Yeah.
And well done for identifying that early and identifying that RCP and going hard after what it is you enjoy, because that gives you energy, right?
Yeah.
And and focusing on what you don't want to do. It's very, very, very specific. I like that. So you had that moment where your work started feeling useful and meaningful rather than just busy.
Mhm.
And many
Mhm.
leaders that are listening in on this little podcast will recognize that shift. Can you take us back to a moment or time where a client actually said to you, Angelo and team, you're actually solving a real problem for me now? Do you have an example of a client saying to you, this problem that we had, you're actually solving it for us now, which was very specific for you with your ICP?
Yeah, we had so many of these, excuse me, of these scenarios. I think an example that really resonates with me was a company, and they did a lot of electricity audits, right? So they essentially would go into a company, whatever it's a Steers, a big factory, a big manufacturing plant, and they used to do stick a power meter into their into this company's infrastructure. They'd get the readings into spreadsheets, and then they'd see, can they optimize their efficiency, their usage of their electricity? Maybe they're on the wrong tariff. And essentially, they basically did this manually for every client. And they have to wait like for a few weeks for all the data, take it away, assess the data, and it's very manual. So they couldn't like really scale their business. And they came to us and they weren't sure that we could build a platform that could do this, right? And
They were
fast forward,
skeptical.
we basically took their vision, we helped work with them to scope out their project, and then how would that tool benefit them and also their clients, and sort of self-manage. And they could just plug in all these devices into their clients, and then the tool actually allowed, it did all the hard work, right? So there was like very little human work to be done, and they could go and focus on selling and talking to new clients and then just getting them into the system. And then for them, they were so happy. They were so proud of the system. It looked really good. It works really well. And they were really hesitant at the beginning as to whether we could do it and whether this technology could actually add so much value, to everybody, to them, to their clients, and to kind of use a tool to forecast savings, or I want to switch a tariff, what would my savings be? And we did it, and that was really, really
Okay.
a great example
Of
of
solving their
self.
actual real life problem. That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool. Angelo, in broad strokes, what's been feeling a little sticky lately for you? What's sort of getting you guys a little bit stuck? Anything broad strokes? Like something must be getting you guys a little bit, making you feel like there's a little bit of friction.
Look, I think with AI, there's obviously a lot of noise around that.
Oh yeah,
All these companies that are launching tech products now, are they an AI-powered world-first product? So there's a lot of noise around that.
yeah,
It's not really affecting us too much right now, to be honest. In fact, it's creating a few opportunities for us because they're kind of, it's stimulating people to go and build their own tech products without having to hire an agency. But they kind of get to a
sure
point where
do.
it's a proof of concept. It doesn't really work that well. They can't launch with it, but maybe they've kicked the can down the road. They've validated their product and they've kind of, confirmed that actually there is a little bit of a product market fit. There is a bit of a need for this product. And now they actually need to go and invest and then do it properly. So there's a lot of this noise
Brilliant.
around the AI space, which I think is a little bit of like not a sticking point, but it's something that's coming up quite a lot. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I felt I'm sort of feeling it myself. Most of the clients that we work with are, they everybody has an AI strategy now. I mean, there's even positions, right, in on the C-suite. The C-suites are starting to identify that as a critical role. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we build out these proof of concepts, or even I wouldn't even want to call it a minimum viable product. I heard you speaking about that a while back, and maybe it's a minimum viable product in the sense that we'd like to test the functionality and get maybe to prove the concept, like you said, to see if there's actually a demand for that problem. But
Mhm.
an agency like yourself, that's where we would go for having these things built out at an enterprise level. I mean, security is a big deal, even for us at Stain Rousseau and Associates. Our systems, they were great for when we built them ourselves in house, and then of course we have to shift over to somebody like yourselves to make that a proper enterprise-wide tool. So thanks for sharing that. Um, if we had to think about patterns, because we are a bit of a pattern recognition creature, aren't we, as humans? Do you have any patterns that keep popping up for you? Any patterns that are from a sticky perspective? We've spoken about AI. If there's one thing that quietly got better for you this week, one thing that got quietly a little bit better for you this week, what would you notice first?
Um, Maybe not this week, but I think in terms of patterns, I think the a pattern is, we spoke about people at the beginning, and there's definitely a big difference between sort of A players and B, C, and D players, and
Yeah,
there's a pattern of how certain A players really, really perform and B players can be elevated to A players. And I think there's also a pattern where, sometimes there's a C or D player and recognizing that, no matter what you do, that they're going to stay at that level. And it's going to be a difficult thing to really get them to drastically increase their sort of level that they operate in.
got
So
you.
that's sort of a pattern that's, I mean, it's throughout, I think, service
Absolutely.
businesses, but
Yeah. There's a really
people
cool
are key.
performance.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a really cool performance formula that we use. The Zig Ziglar performance formula, and that says that performance equals its multiplication problem that we solve. The performance equals attitude. And we'll notice the C and the D players, sometimes the attitude isn't as great as it could be. Maybe it needs to be elevated. So it's your
Mm.
attitude multiplied by your effort, multiplied by your skill. Sometimes we have
Mhm.
great skills, but if our attitude and our effort are down, the performance is going to match. So that's great that you've picked that up. And we've noticed that putting an A and a B player with a C and a D player generally brings those C and D players up. But it's great that you've actually you sort of identified that and sort of understanding where they fit on those scales. How is the attitude? How is the effort? And how is the skill? And which one of those three needs to be elevated slightly to get that performance to move up a little bit? So that's really
Yeah, I think you make a really good point because skills can be taught, right? I
absolutely
mean, to a certain point, if someone really doesn't get a certain skill, then maybe they're not technically
aptitude, sure.
minded or whatever. Yeah, then that fair enough. Effort, I mean, there's no excuse why you can't perform, at a very, very high effort, very high output. But I think attitude, as you touched on, is actually the most important thing. And it's hard to teach attitude. It's hard to change attitude. And we've seen it in our business. We've hired some younger people. They never had an opportunity. They couldn't get a job because they didn't have experience. They couldn't get experience because they never,
Job, chicken and
landed the
egg.
job. Yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah,
we've got a sort of a pipeline program in our business which takes people that have studied, they've got like a little bit of experience, and then we'll plug them into our system. And most often they've got amazing attitudes, and then we will grow them, we'll coach them, we'll mentor them, we'll graduate them into sort of full-time positions. And it's so rewarding to see that because like we're giving someone an opportunity that they never had, and that's all they wanted, right? And they've taken it with both hands and they've really run with it. And yeah, I think we've taught them the skills and then the effort kind of follows that, but the attitude was always there from the start. And then on the flip side, we've seen it once or twice where you've had a really, really good technical skilled person. So their skills are off the charts, their efforts off the charts, but their attitude stinks. And I think they call that kind of person a toxic performer. And that's a very dangerous person because they keep ticking the performance and the boxes and the outputs and the KPIs or however you want to manage them. But yeah, the attitude side is not great because they can drag other people down. So we had
okay.
like, yeah, we've seen that once or twice, and it's good to be very careful with those people. Yeah.
Very, yeah, got to keep a watchful eye and mind. Mindset plays a huge role in attitude, doesn't it? I mean, if everybody's got, if everybody's got the same sort of idea of values and they're all leaning or aiming towards the same values, and
Mhm.
their mindset is in check, then you can, like you said, you can work on the effort and you can definitely work on the skill. But attitude, number one. If your attitude's not great, your performance absolutely will not be great. That's just flat out the way we've seen it.
Mhm.
How do you, I mean, this obviously causes drift inside the business, but how does this impact your clients? I mean, if we've got low attitude, sort of low performance CD players, as we call C or D players, as we call them, how does that sort of impact on your client side? How do they feel it?
So look, we've got a very, very good team. I think over the years when we were a lot younger, we maybe made the wrong hires. So I think right now our team is really amazing. They're doing really well. They're performing. So our clients are feeling the benefit of that. But I think in a scenario where you do have COD players, the output will be bad. So maybe the quality of something will be bad, or something will be delayed, or communication isn't quite where it should be. And that's basically the expectation of the client versus what they think they're going to get versus what is delivered is a little bit of a mismatch. So that causes a bit of unhappiness and dissatisfaction.
Sure.
Yeah,
And then it's brand defense that you've got to go on, right? You've got to defend the brand. So yeah, I got you. That's
yeah,
it has a
yeah.
negative impact, of course. Of course. So as a watchful leader, what do you personally keep an eye on when this is in the background? What are you watching for when you know about this problem, attitude and effort? What are you sort of keeping an eye on there? Are you looking for indicators? Do you spot it in delivery of products? How do you actually identify those little concerns?
So I'm not very involved operationally, to be honest. I'm not very
Yeah,
involved in sort of the day-to-day project management and yeah, delivery and things like that. So I'm not as close to sort of the day-to-day production.
yeah, yeah.
But I think I can definitely spot the attitude. I can also spot when if there is like an issue or there's something that's someone needs to kind of step in. I can see when people are stepping in and who's stepping up, and that's I think is quite interesting to see.
Very good, very good. If we had to get the attitude of all your players, the attitude and the effort up, the skill we've already discussed. But if we had to improve that performance, if it was eased, that challenged, what would good look like for your
Look,
client?
that's something that we work on all the time, So
Right.
every person we're working on that all the time, like,
Brilliant.
effort, quality, product, productivity, skill set, like where are people lacking? How can we improve them? And yeah, so I think we're quite happy where we are now, to be honest. Our clients are quite, I wouldn't say some of them are demanding, but they expect exceptional levels, and we need to be performing exceptionally because that's why people will use us and keep on using us and refer us to other companies. So we want them to have a really great experience. We want them to get what they're expecting, and we want to be thorough at every touch point. Thoroughness is a very important thing in our business. So from the first initial conversation with the client to to the start of a project, to during the project, to afterwards, we need to be thorough in everything, and I think it's something we hammer on all the time, and it's difficult to measure that, but I think it's very important to reinforce it and to almost have a culture that subscribes to doing things thoroughly, doing things properly. And I come back to talking about passion and pride. Be proud of your work, be passionate about the projects you produce, and then those things will follow naturally, right? Being thorough,
Absolutely.
not cutting corners, doing things the way they're meant to be done, and
Product
looking back
mentality.
and
Yeah.
saying, "Wow, look at this great work we did. Look at this project. This is what the client had to say. They're so happy." And we go like, "Wow, let's pat ourselves on the back. That's really, really amazing." And that's kind of what we set out to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that's what I wanted to ask you is what does it look like when it's going well? So it's going well, your customers are smiling and you guys are patting yourselves and each other on the back. So I mean that's what you want. You want the culture to recognize their meaningful efforts. Else,
Mm,
what are they actually there for other than a paycheck? And what we found is if we're only looking after somebody's paycheck, the chances of their attitude and effort being extremely high are very low.
mm, mm.
Paycheck is the minimum requirement for an employee today. It's how are we making them feel welcome and cared for, right, as leaders. So that's very cool. Well done.
Yeah,
On your horizon.
maybe I can just touch on that as well.
Yeah,
I think purpose is a big thing, right? So,
absolutely.
everyone's working on a project, and no matter where you are in that project, if you're contributing somehow to that project, or even you, the receptionist or admin lady, and someone's phoning in for the first time and you've answered the phone call professionally, you're contributing to the purpose of delivering, in our case, like a great projects, right? And I think it feels so good to be contributing and then being recognized at the end for that. And we say, no matter if you are the lead developer or if you just played a bit, uh, like a small role, everyone contributed to that success. And
Yes.
it makes me think about, I can't remember who it was, but someone visited NASA, right? And they spoke to the cleaner who was sweeping the floor in one of these mega factories. And he said, like, what do you do here? And he never said, like, no, I'm a cleaner. He said, like, I'm making this place clean because this is part of the journey to send someone into outer space, and his
Fantastic.
purpose was, yes, he's cleaning, but he had this sort of bigger purpose of basically somehow minutely contributing part of that mission to send someone to outer space. So
Absolutely. That is so amazing. I love that story. Every single person in the team has a role to play. Otherwise, they
yeah,
wouldn't be there. And when we recognize them for that role and we recognize the value and the meaning of their role, there goes the attitude, there goes the effort, there goes the skill. So fantastic. Really love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What's on your horizon, Angelo? Do you have something that you're sort of steering towards, something that's audacious and big and scary goal, something you've set your sights on? What's next for you?
I wouldn't say a big, hairy, audacious goal. We are quite stable now as a company. Our biggest thing is just to keep increasing our international clients.
Growing your footprint
Yeah,
globally.
so we've done quite well this year in terms of doing that. We've actually surpassed our South African, our revenue, and we never thought we'd do that. And
Awesome.
yeah, we got our figures this week, and we realized we've done that. But that also kind of reinforces where we should be going. So that's our sort of biggest growth goal in terms of the next year is to keep on growing our international client base. We're doing such great work in South Africa, not only just our company. I mean, so many good companies in South Africa. We're professional, we can deliver, we can communicate well. We've got like
You
a
really
really,
work
really
hard
good work ethic. Yeah, we've got
and
amazing work
integrity.
ethic.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think people are really waking up to that. So we want to grow that more and more and keep, shining a light on South Africa, doing good work, and yeah, keep growing slowly but steadily. Yeah.
Thank you for showing the rest of the world your colors, which are also we share the color of the flag. So thank you. Thank you for growing that. And that to me is an audacious goal, by the way, growing a global footprint. You're sitting in South Africa, we're quite far away from the rest of the world. So it's a big deal. So you may not consider it an audacious goal, but people like me would argue that slightly. A little quick observation for our listeners. Small things often create big shifts, the biggest, in fact. We've sort of seen some cycle time drops when teams tweak one tiny thing. I've got an example of a team where they were just not getting the right sort of responses on their Monday morning stand-ups, and changing their meeting to 7 minutes past 8 catapulted the attendance and success rate of that Monday morning meeting. I mean, it's just crazy.
Mhm.
That's something I would have thought of. Is there anything any little sneaky rituals that you might have come up with to sort of help with that kind of thing?
We have,
Small changes that
yeah,
create
yeah,
big lifts. Yeah.
yeah. I've got something that I can share with you. So
Yeah.
we've actually got everyone in our office, which I can also talk to you about as well, because a lot of people don't, especially in the tech industry, they don't know how we do it. And a lot of company owners that I speak to, they like really in awe of us, and they go like, "How do you do that? I wish all my team were in the office." So I think
Yeah.
that's the first thing is having everybody here 5 days a week, 8 to 5, building a culture, working on projects, doing little stand-ups, doing huddles, sitting next to each other and mentoring each other. But what we also found is that we use Discord. It's like Slack. It's a messaging channel, and often it's great. It makes communication efficient. But what we found is the communication was sort of happening too much, and then what we introduced is sort of like periods of full focus. And what our team do is they kind of block off times in the morning, times in the afternoon, and they've got like, hour and a half, 2 hour focus periods and a few of those in a day. And then basically the messaging sort of slows down, or I mean, they can work, but they're sort of on do not disturb. And they're just getting deep into their thought, deep into understanding the code, deep into their problem solving. And that's a really productive way of them, being more efficient and producing much, much better work instead of getting a message and then, okay, I see this message. Oh, I have to act on it because this person, what they've asked is wrong, or I need to go and fix it. So I think blocking yourself off is extremely important, and it's worked really well for our team and for even myself and my partner Jerry. We all often block ourselves off and just do really deep focused work. I mean, Robin Sharma, he speaks about this all the time,
Oh yeah,
like this monomaniacal focus and deep work. And
that's
I
it.
think today with all these devices, messages, pop-ups, whatever, WhatsApps, it's so distracting. And I think
Yeah.
attention spans are just getting torn left, right, and center. So introducing that sort of deep focus time has worked really well, and productivity has improved because of it.
I hope you don't take the extreme sort of measures that I took. I took a sabbatical. It was the most amazing experience I've had. And coming out of, that's what I call extreme focus. I locked myself away from the world because I'm an extremely social person. When you get to know me, I can't help myself but to be with people. So for me to really lock in and focus for that period of time that I needed to really do that, I actually took myself out of the game and out of the noise, so to speak. So it's fantastic that you've managed to do that, keeping everybody in the office and making sure that focus time is important. Having a hybrid team or scattered team brings its own challenges. So managing to keep yours internal is really cool. If you did have support, if you could, or if support would or could help right now, imagine you could duplicate yourself as an example. What would an extra pair of hands do, or how would it make your life a little easier?
A lot of the work and the clients that we work with are based on relationships, right? And as you said, you got to kind of stay focused. And I think that because it's so relationship based, there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of goodwill, there's a lot of rapport that's getting built. That means time is a limited resource. And I think,
Yeah,
having more of that would really would be beneficial. I
got
don't
you.
know if
So
I've answered your
specifically,
question.
yeah, no, specifically, it looks like you're looking for time alleviation, so you could focus on relationship time more.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
so you might be spending more time than you would wish inside the business rather than on it. So I get you. I get you. Okay, that's great. What sort of small win, a visible win, would tell you that momentum is starting to build? What small sort of visible win could you have in your team right now that would say to you, I'm starting to see this momentum building now? Small change. Tell me more.
Look, I mean, yeah, in terms of like projects, we've got like quite a streamlined project management process where we're tracking all of our projects. So we can monitor if projects are on track or if they're delayed or if they are getting
Mhm.
sent out ahead of schedule. And I think that, having that sort of data, those metrics,
Yeah,
the visibility of that already tells us that, and we can start
fantastic.
acting really early. Um, yeah, so I think that is kind of already in place.
So you got it all. So yeah, so you would be looking for things like your cycle time and your quality and your energy of your team and all those good things. And you've got ways to measure them so that if you see a dip, you can see there's an indicator. All right, good. So you're not
Mm.
flying in the dark. That's wonderful.
No, 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 definitely not. No,
That's
no.
why you're successful. It kind of helps. So sharing some tips and tricks with our fellow leaders out there. We are nearing the end of our chat, which is good for you because I've heard your morning is so busy. So I'm going to be letting you off the hook quite soon. Angelo, thank you so much for your time already. Let's go through a thing what I like to call sort of a rapid fire. This is a lightning round. It's quick. First thing that comes top of your mind, just pop the answer. There's no right or wrong.
Sure.
Okay. What is your biggest leadership learning this year? If you can just do it in one line. Biggest leadership learning that you've stumbled across this year?
Yeah, I would say have the right people in the right seats. And then when they're in that seat, train them, coach them, empower them, and then let them run with what you've tasked them to do.
Outstanding. What have you, so here's a tricky. What is worse than training your staff and them leaving? Not training them and they stay.
Yeah. So there's an interesting thing, and I know we don't have rapid fire, but if you're looking at someone and you're not sure, like, are they a good performer or not, you can ask yourself a question like, how would I feel if they left tomorrow? And how would I feel if I attended them?
Yeah.
And then looking at that, you know, okay, well, actually, 10 of them would be amazing, or it wouldn't be. Yeah.
There you go. Great lens. I love that. Thank you. It's a practical tip for our listeners. Okay. One practice that reliably lifts your team energy. I used to do a 7-minute Monday wins round. So I want your name and I want your win and your note. That's what I used to do with my team, just to get everybody on a celebration vibe, lifting up the energy. So what's one practice that reliably lifts your team energy?
Yeah, so we do a team huddle on a Friday afternoon. I mean, we do one or two during the week as well. But it's almost like a wrap up of the week, and then we'll do some sort of fun activity after that, maybe a little game or something like that, and then have some drinks. I think it's such a good way to reflect on the week, a good way to kind of, celebrate little wins and then kind of just ease into the weekend and knowing that, okay, well, we've pushed hard this week as a team. We've done really well in X, Y, and Z areas, and kudos to everyone who was involved, kind of thing. Yeah, and I think it just again it reinforces that purpose, reinforces that good work, and that again that sort of reconnects to the values and the
Nailed
purpose.
it.
Yeah.
One of our 6 human needs is significance. And you are showing people that they are significant by celebrating, rewarding them on a weekly basis. So it's again, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing for the people that work in your organization. Okay.
Pleasure.
Which signal do you check first in a tough week? Which signal is your favorite to check first in a tough week?
Give me an example.
Like number of client escalations in the last 48 hours. That's one that
Okay.
Yeah. Deployment frequency, those kinds of things. Is there an indicator that says to you, I'm not, this is the thing that's going to show me something's not right?
Yeah, I'm more on the growth side, so it's more sort of lead gen growth opportunities in the pipeline. There's a few metrics that I look at there. Yeah.
All right. So you're on the growth side. That's fantastic. So you've got your
Yeah.
metrics there. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. I think this might be the last rapid fire for you. What's your go-to decision filter when you're unsure about something? Because let's be honest, the C seat, the executive seat, sometimes is a lonely seat, and you've got a partner in Jerry, which is fantastic. What's your go-to decision filter when you're unsure? I use the Eisenhower matrix as an example for my, allocating tasks to identify whether they're urgent or not, or important or not, etc.
Okay.
But there must be a little go-to decision filter that you use. Something like, if it's irreversible, decide fast. If not, get 2 extra views. That's kind of another little trick.
Yeah. There is an exercise that I've done a few times, so what happens if I just leave it? What happens if I implement option A or say option B? And then what are the sort of pros and cons of that? And then what are the sort of pros and cons of leaving it? And then what are the pros and cons of maybe implementing an option C, a third option, And then I think just doing that exercise, writing it down or typing it out, I think it gives you a little bit more clarity. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't know, like you got to kind of do it in the experiment and then go, okay, well, actually, that wasn't the right option. But, I think that's also where experience comes in.
Yeah. And I love how you ask, what if I do nothing? because that's that's an option. What if I do nothing? And what if I do option A? And what if I do option B? That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah.
Using a bit of an analysis there. That's excellent. That's excellent. Okay. To every leader listening, here's my invitation. Pause for a moment. Look at the work in front of you and choose one useful behavior to practice this week with your teams. Keep it simple. Share the why. Thank you, Simon Sinek. Share the why. Measure the lift and celebrate the smallest wins. Everything you've already spoken about doing. Repeat, because momentum builds confidence, compounds, and clarity follows action. Always, always, always. Your presence really matters as a leader. Your leadership shapes people, and those people are shaping the future. I'm going to close with a little quick Ziglar quote here, the great Zig Ziglar. We do not build businesses. We build people, and then those people build the business.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank you
really
very
true.
much, Angela. Perfect chat with you. It's been great spending some time with you, and wishing you all well. And I hope to catch up with you soon next week. And to all our listeners out there, have a fantastic weekend and see you soon.
Thanks a lot, Clint. It's been a pleasure from my side. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Brilliant. Chat soon. Thank you.
Thanks.